Hello to our gold participants from around the world. I'm Fiona Langsharp, IBCLC Public Relations Manager and MC for Gold Learning. Well, welcome to my conversation with Dr. Nicholas Embleton, not new to Gold, and we're so appreciative that he's back with us here for our Gold Neonatal Online Conference 2017. And he's going to be addressing in his talk feeding preterm babies after hospital discharge, breast milk, fortifier, supplements, and complementary foods. Well, welcome back, Nick. It's great to have you here at Gold again.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me. I had a great time last time I spoke with you, and looking forward to it this time. Thank you.
Yes, we're very excited with our inaugural conference, our Gold Neonatal, such a special conference to so many people, and the response has been wonderful, and we're excited that we'll be kicking off this conference on Monday, May 8th, so it'll be fantastic. But for all of our audience who maybe didn't hear you speak before, perhaps we could do a little bit of an introduction again of you. So perhaps you'd like to introduce yourself and maybe tell them what you're doing these days and where you're practicing and what your day-to-day looks like.
Okay, yes, well, thank you very much. I'm a neonatal consultant, or what you would call an attending pediatrician in the US. I've worked in neonatal medicine for about 25 years and have been an attending or a consultant for the last 15 years or so. I work in a large NICU in Newcastle, which is in the north of England, not quite in Scotland, but quite far north. And we have quite a big NICU with 16 intensive care cots caring for lots of babies, particularly complex babies with surgical disorders, for example, necrotizing enterocolitis or congenital problems. We care for a lot of very tiny babies. We're looking after lots of 23, 24, 25 weekers.
Wow.
So clinically have a really busy unit. And my own kind of research interests very much focused on nutrition and how to feed babies. And we're particularly interested in the role of milk feeding, and particularly sort of breast milk in the early days, and how this might influence the pattern of gut microbes and encouraging healthy bacteria and these sorts of things. So we do lots of trials. But I'm also particularly interested in what it all means later on. How do these babies grow when they go
Right.
home? How do their brains develop? And what does it mean to be a preterm baby, and how does growth impact on that as you grow up into teenage life? So some of my studies have included following up babies up into sort of their late teens. So yeah, that's where I'm at, and that's what I'm interested in.
That's very cool. So I have a couple of follow-up questions now because I was thinking about the dynamics of where you are and your facility. Do you take in from other areas? Are you serving just a narrow area? What happens? Do you have to have neonates fly into you? What happens at your
Yeah, so we cover quite a large geographical area. So about population of about 3.5 million, with about 35,000 deliveries in the
Wow.
whole geographical region.
Right.
And that region is served by 4 NICUs, of which we're
Okay.
the largest. So we do about half of all the intensive care.
Sure.
And so a lot of babies are brought in almost never by air, very occasionally perhaps by air, but almost always ground transport. But there could be an
Right.
ambulance journey of up to 3 hours to get a baby to us
Wow.
from the West Coast.
So you must have some pretty incredible transport teams there as well.
We have an amazing transport team and
Yeah.
busy ambulance and busy fellows and nurses. Yeah, they love it.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's a real talent, I know in that area. Okay, another question for you. You touched on a little bit of research, and I was just reading up on your bibliography about a project that you're working on with a very large number of neonates that you've been recruiting, and that's an incredible number. It seems that you're recruiting. So, how far are you into this whole process of this larger study that you're doing? What's the timeline that we're looking at here?
Yeah, so we're doing two studies sort of back to back pretty much as part of a collaborative group across the UK. So we're lucky to work with a trials group who have a lot of experience in doing studies in babies. And we
Right.
have two trials, one which was looking at how quickly you can increase the milk feed. So this was called SIFT, or the Speed of Feeding Increase trial.
Hmm.
And we finished recruiting to that about 18 months ago, and we're just starting to analyze and present the data now. And that
Cool.
recruited 2,800 babies from 30 different NICUs.
Wow.
And just prior to that finishing, we started another study looking at lactoferrin. And
Hmm.
lactoferrin is a milk protein which is particularly in high concentration in colostrum and early milk.
Hmm.
But of course, as everyone will realise, most of your babies don't get very much milk in the first few days, particularly if
Yeah.
they're preterm and sick. And lactoferrin is a very important protein. It's a very important way in which animals and mammals fight against infection, and it's one of the
Hmm.
reasons why we think it's in very high levels in human breast milk.
Hmm.
And so we're doing a trial where we're giving babies extra lactoferrin. This isn't human lactoferrin, it's lactoferrin from cows. But
Hmm.
interestingly, the sort of structure of the lactoferrin is really quite similar to human lactoferrin. It's one of these proteins that stays around as we evolve
Right.
because it's so good.
Hmm.
And we're now recruiting 2,200 babies to that trial. And as of today, we've recruited about 1,600
Wow.
across another 25 neonatal units. So those two trials combined will recruit about 5,000 babies. And
Right.
that's the sort of trial you need to do in terms of that size to really find out whether these interventions affect development of sepsis and necrotizing enterocolitis and these sorts of
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, very powerful, to hear the numbers that you've been able to do because, size matters. I mean, no one pays attention unless you've got a good cohort of people,
Absolutely.
or in this case, neonates. And exciting to hear the work that you're doing, as well as far as, the impact that it's having, short and long term as well. So I guess that leads me to my next question. I mean, here we are. You're going to be talking about feeding the preterm babies, but this is after hospital discharge with breast milk fortifier or a breast milk fortifier supplements and complementary foods. So, tell me a little bit why you really got into this topic and what you've seen it like. What have you enjoyed putting together so far with this topic?
Yeah. I mean, I think what's really important to understand about the post-discharge period is that a huge amount of growth and brain growth and differentiation actually happens after discharge. And
Hmm.
when the babies are in on the NICU, there's a lot of attention focused on their nutrition and how we get the parenteral nutrition right and how we get babies to feed and grow. But quite often then, people often stop thinking about it at the point that the babies go home. But quite a lot
Hmm.
of our babies still only weigh 2.5 kilos.
Yeah.
So they're still smaller than many of your term babies. And I guess that what I'm trying to do is emphasize to people that nutrition is really important in this period as well. And it's possible that how you feed and nourish babies in this immediate period after discharge may itself have long-term impacts on how the brain grows and
Hmm.
future consequences for cognition and development and the diseases of aging.
Right. Yeah, I mean, to me, this is very fascinating because I think this always that for me as a parent of a NICU graduate, so I can't say I've ever very minimal work in the NICU as a lactation consultant, but a parent of a graduate, and very critical times, post discharge. But when my son was discharged, there was a very much a disconnect, in what's happening and how you follow up and what you're supposed to do. It's very interesting. I love this. I think
Yeah,
that there always needs to be, this is an area that we can really start to build up and make sure, because there's so many other things that go along with this as well. But of course, feeding being the primary one, for survival. So it's great to hear that you're really working in this area, and I'm really keen to hear the full presentation, but not today. I guess we don't do it today. We have to have you come back and do that. So that's good, but very interesting indeed. So lastly, before we wrap things up here, perhaps you just want to tell me briefly, what are you most excited about sharing, or what are you hoping that the delegates will get out of this topic?
well, I think really just to encourage everybody that when we're thinking about nutrition, we need to think about the kind of holistic concept of nutrition and just not get bogged down in nutrients or weight gain, for example. And there's a
Hmm.
tendency for people to not appreciate how complex an intervention nutrition is. And when you think about something like breastfeeding, and you think about all the impacts on the mother and how the mother's biology may impact on the baby and all the other consequences, and then recognizing that babies who are breastfed often do grow slower than a formula fed baby, but that even in that setting, breast milk tends to be advantageous. So, what I really want to do is to get people to think widely about nutrition, not just get bogged down into grams of this and micromoles of that, but really think about what is it we're trying to do and to think about all the different impacts on how babies are fed, and also kind of what it means in later life for these babies.
Absolutely. Well, I can't wait to hear more. Thank you so much for chatting today. It's been great just getting an update, hearing what you're doing. Fascinated by the trials, of course, and
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear more on, the connect on, with these babies after they get discharged. It'll be fantastic. So thanks for being here. I just want to mention to our listening audience right now. Dr. Embleton is going to be with us on Wednesday, the 17th of May. That's what's on our schedule. But go to the website to check out your local time because, of course, international conference, we're all in different time zones. So go and check it out at www.goldneonatal.com. The conference kicks off on May 8th, so don't forget to join us for that day as well. But we're certainly looking forward to hearing more from you, Nick. So thank you again for joining me today, and thanks for our listening audience. We'll be back soon with some more. Bye bye for now.